E-Chemistry class, Fatima Convent High School, Class 9th, Chapter 2, Is Matter Around Us Pure? Today in this session, we are going to see two more important methods for separation of mixtures. How can we separate mixture of two miscible liquid? Now we saw how to separate two immiscible liquid using a separating funnel. We saw how solid and liquids by chromatography and volatile and non-volatile substances by evaporation. Now let us see how we can separate two miscible liquids. Miscible liquids are liquids which get mixed up with each other. Let us try to separate acetone and water from their mixture. Take the mixture in a distillation flask, fit it with a thermometer. Arrange the apparatus as shown in the figure. Heat the mixture slowly, keeping a close watch at the thermometer. The acetone vaporizes, condenses in the condenser, and can be collected from the condenser outlet. Water is left behind in the distillation flask. Now, just get familiar with these apparatus in the chemistry lab. Again, this is the stand. Then you have the round bottom flask fixed with a cork and a thermometer. You have a connecting tube which fixes to the condenser. Condenser is an apparatus of double glass tube which has a capillary in the center where the substance is vaporized and passed through, and around it is another glass tube which covers this and has an inlet and outlet of water. The water inlet and outlet helps to circulate the water around it so that the content in the capillary remains cool or it condenses after vaporization. So, when you boil this liquid in the round bottom flask, the substance which is having a low boiling point will vaporize, and the vapor being lighter will rise up and move out through the capillary and reach the condenser tube, where due to the water it condenses back into liquid state. So what we obtain at the end of the process is a pure substance which we are trying to separate. Here it is acetone. So you will be able to answer these questions easily now. This method is called distillation. It is used for separation of substances or components containing two miscible liquids that boil without decomposition and have sufficient difference in their boiling point. To separate a mixture of two or more miscible liquids for which the difference in boiling point is less than 25 K, fractional distillation process is used. For example, for the separation of different gases from air, different fractions from petroleum products, etc. The apparatus is similar to that of simple distillation, except that the fractionating column is fitted in between the distillation flask and the condenser. A simple fractionating column is a tube packed with glass bead. There are various types of fractionating columns as such, but the glass bead is used in general for small processes. The glass bead provides surface for the vapor to cool and condense repeatedly as shown in the figure. The setup is same, only we add one more fractionating tower or a column there, which is again attached to the condenser. Now let us see how to obtain different gases from air. We know that air is a mixture of many gases, and the maximum amount present is nitrogen, oxygen, and then various other gases in very small proportion. But along with this, the impure air contains many other pollutants. Sometimes this air needs to be purified, and sometimes these components like nitrogen, oxygen are to be separated out for various other purposes. Now, air is a homogeneous mixture and can be separated into its component by fractional distillation. The flow diagram shows the steps of the process. Air. Compress and cool by increasing pressure and decreasing temperature. Liquid air. Allow to warm up slowly in fractional distillation column. Gas gets separated at different heights. The boiling point of oxygen is minus 183 and it contains volume of 20.9, argon minus 186 and 0.9, and nitrogen minus 196 and 78.1. If we want oxygen gas from air, we have to separate out all the other gases present in the air. The air is compressed by increasing the pressure and is then cooled by decreasing the temperature to get liquid air. This liquid air is allowed to warm up slowly in a fractional distillation column, where gases get separated at different heights depending upon their boiling point. So, the setup for that is something like this, where you can see the various apparatus in a series connection, where you have the filter through which the air passes, and so the bigger components or bigger impurities are stopped there. Then it goes into a pressure column where the air is under high pressure and heated. The hot air moves up where there is a condenser, and because of that the cold compressed air moves into a separator. Now this separator separates carbon dioxide out as dry ice. Dry ice is nothing but solid carbon dioxide. Then the liquid air will move in expansion jet and move to separate out nitrogen and argon through the outlets. That is a fractionating column. And then finally you obtain liquid oxygen. This is how we get the oxygen which are generally used for various welding purposes or even in the hospitals. How do we obtain pure copper sulphate from an impure sample? Take some approximately 5 grams impure sample of copper sulphate in a china dish. Dissolve it in a minimum amount of water. Filter the impurities out. Evaporate water from the copper sulphate solution so as to get a saturated solution. Cover the solution with a filter paper and leave it undisturbed at room temperature to cool slowly for a day. You will obtain the crystals of copper sulphate in china dish. This process is called crystallization. So, crystallization is a very important process for purification of various substances. The crystallization method is used to purify solids. For example, the salts we get from seawater can have many impurities. So this is another process by which you can do the separation. To remove these impurities, the process of crystallization is used. Crystallization is the process that separates a pure solid in the form of its crystals from a solution. Crystallization technique is better than simple evaporation technique. Some solid decomposes out. Or like sugar may be charred on heating to dryness. Some impurities may remain dissolved in the solution even after filtration. On evaporation, they contaminate the solid. So, this is how crystallization process is carried out. What are the applications of crystallization process? Purification of salt that we get from seawater, separation of crystals of alum fitocrete from impure glass, impure samples. Thus, by choosing one of the above method according to the nature of the component of the mixture, we get a pure substance. With advancement in technology, many more methods of separation techniques have been devised. In cities, drinking water is supplied from waterworks. A flow diagram of a typical waterwork is shown in the figure 2.13. From this figure, write down the process involved to get the supply of drinking water to your homes from waterworks and discuss it in your class. So you can see how the water is separated out in the water purification or filtration department in our cities, and you get clean drinking water in your tanks. This is a reservoir, which could be a well, it could be a river, or it could be a lake. In Bhavnagar, it is a lake. Now this water from the reservoir is pumped out into the large tanks, which are also called as sedimentation tanks, and the water is allowed to settle here for 15 to 20 days, and because of the sedimentation, the heavy particles will settle down at the bottom of the tank, and the clean water will be moved further into another tank where the lighter particles or the suspended impurities are removed by loading tank. Now loading is a process in which certain other substances like alum is mixed with the water so that the particles which are still inside the water will become heavier and they will settle down. So the heavier particles are separated in sedimentation tank by settling them for few days. Then the particles which are lighter and which do not settle on their own are added with some loading material like alum specially and made heavier, and then they will settle. Now the remaining water or the cleaner water passes to another filtration tank, which is layered by various sizes of stones and gravels. So fine sand, gravels and coarse gravels, through which the water passes and gets filtered, and what remains on the top is pure water. Now it has to be made bacteria and organism free. So it is passed into the chlorination tank where the chlorine gas is passed, which kills the bacteria or the other harmful organisms and pathogens present. And finally it reaches our home. And at home we might be using a purifier again to purify it still more, but the water we get in our tank is purified. I hope this is clear. Thank you.